Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of the PastCast. Today, myself and Joe the Founded Scarab are going to be talking about the original Uncharted trilogy.
Yes.
Joe, how are you doing?
Yes, we will be. I'm just in absolute hysterics and no one understands why. So I just look like a massive R word today. But other than that, I'm doing quite well, ready to get into this. I mean, I've just played all 3 of these games for the first time. And I think I have a lot to say. I think some people might be mad at me, but it's what it is. People always get mad at me for my opinions. So, it's the only reason I'm on the internet. Anyway, how are you doing, Jack?
I'm alright. I'm excited to talk about these. I have a lot of love for these games, or I did. Nah, I still love 2, but I played these back in 2018.
Yeah.
I got the platinum for 2 because I loved it that much, and I did it for 4. But I had really good memories of these games, and replaying 1 to 3 now has been a good test.
A good refresher. It's not ruined it for you. It's not completely ruined the series for you, has it?
We'll get into that. But anyway, Uncharted 1, Drake's Fortune.
First and foremost, I just want to get into this real quick. Naughty Dog, cool, pretty cool developer. But Blue Point Games need to remake every single game ever made. So obviously, for my first ever playthrough of these, I played the Nathan Drake collection, which is the remaster that came out in 2015, 2016. I think it was 2015 because it was before the Ezio collection. Oh fuck! I've said it. We need to restart.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I'm in belting distance of 3 pillars. I'm gonna get fucked now. But anyway, that's fine. Blue Point, very. But cool.
Yeah, no. So yeah, they absolutely smashed it. I mean, obviously, Demon's Souls looks incredible, but going back and booting up Uncharted 1 for the first time, obviously a game that came out in 2007. Holy shit, is it beautiful! Like the lighting engine they implemented is absolutely stunning. It never, ends in people being overexposed or anything. It's just gorgeous. It looks like, honestly, every single game in the Nathan Drake collection looks like it could easily be an early PS4 game, and that's insane to say. That's just a side note I wanted to get out of the way first. Shout out to Blue Point Games.
Yeah, they're really fucking good.
Yeah.
There's a few shots where it's like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
That looks like the one where Tenzin finds Nate in Uncharted 2. Which that looks like some shit that could come out now, and even if it came out now, people would say that looks fucking great.
Yeah, it is legitimately ridiculous.
It's mental.
Yeah, I think it would only make sense to start with Uncharted 1, right? AKA Uncharted, Drake's Fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be spot on.
Uncharted, 2 of the 3 bad games in this trilogy.
Bad? Are we gonna say bad? Are we gonna say bad? Now,
I think it's a light 5.
Yeah,
I mean, give it.
Listen, if we're gonna be honest here, right? And I'm a big fan of a certain game that has gotten the label outdated. So I can imagine how annoying this would be to fans of Uncharted who played it when it originally came out. Maybe they went hungry on the bus that day from France, and they just that's such a dumb reference. Maybe they love it. But also has a lot of issues. And it's just from the moment you start it, right? From the moment you start it on that boat with Alina.
Yeah.
You do feel the age a little bit. I mean, the gunplay, which makes up 95% of this game,
too much of this game,
yeah, simply too much. It just immediately feels very off. Very imprecise. There's no auto aim, which screws me over because I'm shit at every game. But yeah, gunplay is very imprecise. The climbing mechanics, all the animations are very strange, and I think the reason it's so jarring, especially in Uncharted Drake's Fortune, is because, Uncharted Drake's Fortune was one of the first games ever to mocap their cutscenes. So every single cutscene looks beautiful and fluid. So when you jump into the gameplay and it's not, and it's clunkier and it has, it's more rougher on the edges, it is very jarring. That's something I noticed very early on.
Yeah. I'd agree, especially fucking aiming animations where you're not even aiming your gun the right way.
Yeah.
And melee is really rigid. That's how everything is generally, rigid.
Yeah.
in how it looks, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just because it contrasts so much to those fluid-looking cutscenes, it's very strange. But honestly, I mean, aside from that, this game was at the time, from what I've heard, from what I've researched, because we do research here. This game was pretty revolutionary for its time, mainly in terms of atmosphere in the world. I mean, the world of Uncharted 1, a lot of people complain that it's maybe a bit too compact. It's this one island that's very, very linear, but it is beautiful. It is beautiful. It is stuffed to the brim with atmosphere, especially for a 2007 game, especially when NPCs other than enemies are pretty much non-existent. I mean, there's enemy NPCs and nothing else. And even those NPCs, the AI of those NPCs, especially for the time, are fantastic. I mean, the NPCs react dynamically to what you do, where you're aiming, where you are.
Yeah.
And that's even stranger when you contrast it with Uncharted 3, which we'll get to later, which their NPCs, their AI has been dumbed down to a ridiculous extent, and they don't even react to gunfire. So a lot of things that Uncharted 1 definitely did, push the industry forward in doing. But I do understand why initially a lot of people considered this game to be just Sony's attempt to make a Tomb Raider ripoff, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously too, breaks out of that.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean as well. I think it's either 1 or 3. I think 2's the sweet spot, but in 1, enemies are far too spongy.
Okay.
Well, you can shoot enemies in the head twice sometimes, at least on normal.
Yeah.
And they won't go down, and that's sort of annoying.
It's very tough. I can't imagine how anyone could have ever played Uncharted 1 on crushing, because it is a genuine challenge. And I mean, considering the game is so short, the game itself is so short if you play it on easy, it almost at times feels like those enemies are padded in order to pad the game out on occasion, which is never ideal. You never want too much padding in a game, but I don't think it ruins the experience by any means. I think the pacing is relative, it's functional, it's good, it's consistent, and it never feels like it drags too much in comparison to the likes of Uncharted 3, which again we'll get to later. But maybe that's just me. I would agree. I think Uncharted 3 is much more padded than 1, but I still think 1 has a fair bit of padding. There's a few environments that you'll spend like in Uncharted 1, and you never have this in 2. There's these whole sections looking for Elena, I think is one of them, where you can just listen to a fucking podcast or throw on an entire LP, and you'd miss basically nothing, because it's just big stretches of shooty bits. Yeah, that is true.
I hate shooty bits in Uncharted.
Yeah, I think the longest cutscene is in chapter 2, I think. But then is it chapter 4 through 7, I think, or maybe 4 through 8? There's no cutscene. I think it's a 3 or 4 chapter span where there's literally no cutscenes, and it's pure gunfight after gunfight after gunfight after gunfight, and that can definitely get tedious after a while, especially when it doesn't have. Uncharted 1 has the puzzles, has the climbing sections that 2 has, but it's far less frequent.
Few and far between, isn't it?
Yeah, and on top of that, the puzzles themselves are, they're more visual treats than anything. They're never presented as an actual challenge. They're blatantly obvious. And even when you don't figure them out,
the answer's just told to you.
Yeah,
you open the book and it will tell you what to do. It's just a matter of doing that thing.
Yeah, the first ones, you literally just press a bunch of buttons in a certain order. It's equivalent to that thing you had it as a kid. I don't know if you had it as a kid, but that thing you used to fucking get. It was a block of wood, and it had different shapes in it, and you had to put the shapes inside. That's basically what the first puzzle is of this game.
Pretty much.
And that can be a little, insulting.
I think generally though, we'd agree that's the biggest problem with Uncharted 1, that these big shooting galleries take precedence over puzzles or platforming or set pieces, the things that actually make Uncharted 1 so interesting.
Yeah.
Because in regards to that, Uncharted is the best in the business and what you think of when you think of set pieces. But when you think of Uncharted, despite it making up so much of the game, you never think of like these big shooting galleries. You never think that's what makes these games good, because it's not.
Well, honestly, it took me by surprise, playing it for the first time, because I didn't realize just how much, over the shoulder shooting there was. I knew that it was a third person shooter, but I didn't quite understand the extent of that, especially when it came to Uncharted 1. Like, so many times you'll just be you'll be in some random place in the jungle, which it seems like something might happen, but it's very almost jarring when it's just a wave of multiple waves of enemies come out, like of pirates come out running at you. Like it's never really. How do I even put it? Like, obviously the story itself explains these pirates off, explains these enemies off, but the sheer volume of them, it's like it's never really explained.
It's never justified, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And it does all too often feel like a slight bit of padding. That being said, the actual variety of guns and stuff and enemies, I mean, again, giving it some leeway because it was 2007, but there is a genuine challenge, I feel, in Uncharted 1. The snipers provide actual fear in the player. Like, you feel like you constantly need to roll away or you will just get one hit. Whereas, in future games, you had way more time. You had way more leeway. The tanks are they are fucking tanks. They'll just come at you with a shotgun, walk through like hundreds of your shots. And although that can break immersion at points, it at least provides some challenge, which is the least you could ask for when a game leans so heavily on its gunplay.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree. The funniest thing though is, like, obviously it needs these shootouts because there needs to be a game. Like, if there wasn't an excessive amount of gunfights, the game would be like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
But they never address that Nate kills a small army.
He does.
Like 1,000 people. You pointed this out on stream. They would be child soldiers. You fucking said this on stream.
Yeah. Nathan Drake does. He is just a genocidal maniac. He commits mass murder across numerous various continents.
He never shows remorse. See, there's a line in like Uncharted 3 where he's like to Elena, I know you enjoy this as much as I do. What, fucking wiping out thousands of foreign soldiers?
He's a fucking madman, because again, they are just like foreign. So obviously it's self-defense, but they are just fucking Panamanian child soldiers who have been hired by this random. Also, the Uncharted series hate English people. Every enemy, every main enemy
I can
is an
accept
Englishman.
that.
And I just want to say I appreciate that so much. The accuracy to real life is spot on, and I do love that. But yeah, it is strange that it's never really a talking point. I mean, obviously I've not played Uncharted 4 yet, but it's never really brought up that he's killed thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, just because treasure. It's a bit strange.
Yeah, it is really funny because like they need the shootouts for the sake of padding, but then they want him to be like this plucky, happy-go-lucky guy, and they can't have a dark tone for the game they want.
He really if you took away some of the epic action music, you could definitely paint Nathan Drake out to be a fucking maniac, like him just cracking his joke after murdering like 150 people.
There's an argument to be made, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that speaking of things that aren't really fleshed out or explored in the story, is Sully and Nate's relationship. Now, as soon as I saw them, right, the writing was pretty fantastic in building up these characters and developing these characters and making these characters likable. But the actual relationship itself of Nate and Sully in this game is very undefined, and obviously that's hard to do when it's the first game in a series and you don't know exactly where it's going to go. But looking back at it in retrospect with the context of Uncharted 3 and I'd imagine Uncharted 4, it's really strange because Sully and Nate almost act as if they met like 3 months ago, and they're just working together for some cash, whereas they have this intensely deep backstory from the time Nate was a child. So that's a hard line to balance when you.
It's odd going back at it having played the other games, because like when Nate goes into the U-boat. Sully takes the journal because he's like, oh, well, if you fucking die,
Yeah.
I want this. And then also, Nate doesn't care that he dies. And then
He
also
doesn't.
thinks he could be a traitor.
He-
Which,
yeah.
with the added context of 2 to 4, is just fucking bizarre.
Yeah, just it's he really doesn't care. Like Sully dies, and then literally 5 minutes later, he's cracking jokes with Alina, on that fucking jet ski. Which that jet ski.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get to that.
I think it's chapter 13, chapter 14, where you run across this jet ski in the middle of the forest, and you decide, this is probably be a quicker way to get to our destination. I don't actually remember where the fuck you're going on this jet ski, to be perfectly honest, because it's not very well fleshed out. But you get on this jet ski, and you spend a solid, depending on how good you are at the game, and obviously I'm terrible at every game. It takes you a solid 8 hours to get through these 2 chapters on the jet ski. It is the worst fucking system of any game I've ever played. It is
I don't
so
know
horrible.
what the idea was there, because like, if you're on a jet ski, surely you think, oh, this is going to be another big, bombastic, fast-paced fucking set piece. But it's a test of patience more than anything.
Yeah, it is the absolute opposite. You get this jet ski, and then suddenly you're going as slowly as possible, slowly taking out each soldier, because for whatever reason, and maybe it was just restriction at the time, I don't know, maybe it was a bad decision when it comes to their control scheme, but for whatever reason they decided, you have to control the movement of the jet ski, but if you want to shoot, the jet ski has to come to a complete stop, right? So you can't physically shoot anyone
as you're being shot at.
You cannot physically shoot anyone whilst riding your jet ski, which is the most infuriating experience of all time, because it makes this stop-start, like, horrible, boring, sluggish system that it ruins the pacing of the game and ruins the enjoyment of the player for a solid 1, 2, 3 chapters. So that's probably the biggest downside of this game. Would you say?
I think if you're looking at like specific chapters, I think those 2, as well as those like 3 or 4 we were talking about that are just empty gunfights, are for sure the worst. I like the opening hour though. I generally think is quite strong compared to the rest.
Yeah, I
if you want to jump into story,
I completely agree. I mean, for me, that's the first hour or 2 is definitely my favorite. My favorite part of the game. It's just building up these characters, building up the relationships, building up the mystery of Francis Drake's expedition. It's all fantastic. And also I found that it's almost like they put as much of the resources into like the level design early on as they could. Like, I feel like the level design definitely starts to slip as time goes on, but the first 1, 2, 3 chapters, it has pretty consistently quality level design. It's not just randomly placed thigh-high walls, which is my biggest gripe is fucking thigh-high walls in this game. It's not just randomly placed thigh-high walls. You actually have some, you can create some strategies when you're in the gunfights early on. But that definitely slips as time goes on.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think generally like the first hour or 2, I wouldn't even call mediocre. I'd just say it's good. Like, the opening to these games are always good. That's right. Because like you're just thrown into at least some sense of action, and there's always some context like left out that leaves you wanting to know more. So that's
true.
Elena's our weakest in this game, though. I feel.
I definitely agree. I didn't rate Elena at all after this game. Actually, I had no emotional connection.
Oh no, you didn't.
She was literally just.
It's her acting
there.
For me. I think.
Right. Okay.
Like, she just seems like she doesn't really care.
Yeah.
It's because I'm thinking of the opening now, and every line she delivers in that opening is just kind of bad.
Yeah, it doesn't really give much. It never gives a reason for the player to really be invested in her at all. She's just kind of a tag-along, and she feels like a tag-along, She never does anything more than be a tag-along. Obviously, she shows up later in the game to help, but her help is mostly within the jet ski sequences that I've mentioned before. So that's kind of diluted a little bit because you're actively hating your experience when you're actually with her. I mean, I think she's good in the first cutscene on the ship, but I think that's just the banter between her and Nathan is just built up. But
yeah, she just sounds kind of bored to me, especially towards like the start of the game.
Yeah, I just she feels generic in this game. I'd say, like just kind of generic generic blonde love interest who. Yeah, she doesn't do anything. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. Though. This game, in terms of its writing, feels the most like a game and the most cartoonish.
Right.
And so, like, Uncharted 2, for example, there's far more character moments and cutscenes. But here, even when there's opportunities for like actual character drama, like when Sully dies, every like chance for that is just sort of ignored. And I think that's a big strength of 2. Because generally Uncharted 1's story, if these characters weren't fleshed out in 2, would be quite forgettable, I feel.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I feel like it's almost like Uncharted 1 is the real adventure game, whereas whereas 2 and 3 and 4 are far more the narrative focused. They're the story focused games, Like Uncharted 1 really just lays the foundation and creates a fun adventure searching for El Dorado and doesn't really do anything more or less than that. You know what I mean? Even though there, like you said, there's opportunities for it, with Sully's death and, Alina getting captured or whatever. So yeah, a little bit underwhelming. Definitely dated, but I see the intent, Like it is far more focused on just that adventure. And I think the actual adventure itself is pretty decent, searching for El Dorado, kind of cool. And then you reach the I don't know what they're fucking called. I called them Nazi zombies for my entire stream, which was a strange decision.
I don't think they have a name.
Descendants.
Do they not? Because they're So this confused me, right? And it was because I wasn't paying attention, to be perfectly honest. This confused me, so maybe you can explain this to me. Who actually are they, right? Because I thought that they were the soldiers from the U-boat, but were they Francis's crew, or were they the soldiers from the U-boat? That threw me off so much.
Francis Drake didn't team up with some Nazis. That's
No. But the Nazis went in afterwards.
Yeah.
So which one's which?
Well, okay, this is the thing. They find fucking Francis Drake's body, and that's one of the better scenes in the game.
Yeah.
And it's like him. Does he die to the Spanish, or is it to these monsters, or is it just left ambiguous?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. We probably sound so dumb right now. We just don't know what fucking happened. But it is. There's so many moving parts. You've got the Spanish, you've got Francis Drake's crew, and then you've got the Nazis. So it's like they all kind of merge into one, and it's hard to.
We're sort of neglecting the fact that there's some fucking Nazis in what? Where is this?
This is Panama.
Oh, did the Nazis go? I don't fucking know. I'm not for sure on my Nazi history.
We probably sound like uneducated, disgusting plebs right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Because there's that Nazi base, so I guess they were like stationed there, and then I think they would have, because they must have been infected by the El Dorado itself.
That's the thing. So it must have been Drake's crew, right? Because Nazis in I don't know. I don't fucking know. Either way, that section is probably weird. Either way, that section is definitely my favorite part of the game. The bit where it just goes full amnesia, absolutely terrifying, made me fully shit my pants. I'm not even gonna lie. It jumps from, you're constantly in cover, you're constantly trying to avoid gunfire, whereas you just jump in, running gun down these naked fucking slimy creatures, these mutants that are just chasing you around the place, whilst you have to I've forgotten what it is. You're locked in the bunker. That's what it is. You're locked in this bunker.
You're switching the power on.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, they are Nazis, because there's that video that Nate finds of the Nazi turning into one of the things. They are Nazis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, so many moving parts. But no, that is such a good twist, because that is the first time in the game, and the only time in the game, where you really get like a different experience and a different atmosphere. Whereas, you know, the atmosphere and the experience of gunning down, you know, random Panamanian child soldiers it gets a bit tired after 4, 5, 6 hours of doing it. So it does just completely throw you through a loop when these mutants just show up and start chasing you around the place. I think that was the best decision for Naughty Dog to make, because not only does it, you know, provide a great experience there, but it also opens up the possibility of more supernatural stuff to come up in the future games. And I know a lot of people don't like the new supernatural stuff in these games, but I've got to say, for me, usually the highlight. So
yeah, I think it's mismanaged in 2 and 3. Ooh, I think it's done here best, actually. We'll get on to that. Fair. But anyway, that's right. Since we're talking about story, let's talk about 3 of the most memorable villains in all of gaming.
Oh, no.
Gabriel Roman, what's his name? Itok Navarro.
Yeah.
And Eddie Toe. No, Raja.
Gonna be honest.
Who the fuck is Eddie Toe?
Gonna be honest.
Eddie Raja.
For all I know, those are all the same person. For all I know, those are all the same person. Yeah. They
all serve the same purpose.
Well, they do. It's just providing arbitrary opposition. I remember Navarro's the final boss, and he comes out of absolutely nowhere. You've got the Englishman, that whichever one that is. You've got the big old grey-haired Englishman, who's presented as the villain from the start. He kills Sully, whatever, big bad. And then he just fucks off. And Navarro, this sidekick, who I swear doesn't have a line throughout the entire rest of the game, ends up being the big bad that you have to fight in one of the worst boss fights of all time. I mean, the rest of the game is very linear and fairly scripted, but this is a whole nother level. You have to do the exact order of movements that the Naughty Dog want you to do. And if you even do something slightly off kilter, you just die. Which means you spend the first playthrough of the game just repeating and doing this trial and error bullshit until you eventually get it right, and your second playthrough finally actually getting a cinematic, you know, conclusion, which at the end of the day is ruined because it's not. It doesn't have any narrative weight to it.
The whole thing is just a glorified QTE. Like, it's a timing exercise where you can't express any creativity or you can't exercise any sort of agency. You just have to go along this one path, and it does literally end in a fucking QTE.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. Like, really, really bad.
Yeah, and the final cutscene at the end, when Navarro just stands there pointing a shotgun at Nate, so he can push this helicopter off the ship, turn around, say adios, friend, or some fucking Terminator 3 fucking quip. There's like a 15-second gap where he should have killed Nate.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
Really bad.
And that's Uncharted 1.
I mean, it's not a bad game, right? It's definitely dated. That's the thing. I think that's just its biggest issue, right? I can see why people would love it when it came out, and I can see why people are nostalgic for it, because it is. Yeah. Most of it is relatively good, but it just has so many issues in retrospect that is hard to kind of, you know, praise today, if that makes sense. Like, this is an example of a game that has legitimately aged, and it's aged poorly. You know what I mean? So it's tough, because it is one of those things where it's like, people played it when they were younger, people played it when it came out, and it has such a big nostalgia factor in being the first game in this fantastic series. But it's
I'd probably if you do like this game, just take off the fucking nostalgia glasses. You're an idiot, and there's
got too much baggage. Too much baggage. Yeah. But yeah, I'd probably give it a solid. Your fault. Yeah, I'd give it like a solid 5 out of 10. But I simply you just can't go any higher than that. Like, it's just kind of okay. And you know, no better, no worse. But it did lay the foundation for what went on to be, in my opinion, one of those perfect sequel games. You've got your Arkham Cities. You've got your, that other sequel that's good that I can't talk about. And then you've got Uncharted 2. And they all happen to come around the same time. Uncharted 2 is such a perfect sequel to Uncharted 1. It's actually unbelievable. It builds on everything perfectly without changing the formula, without changing too much, without making it a completely different experience. It is
just evolves.
It is spot on. It is spot on. It's a true evolution. Like, it feels like...
Yeah.
Well, the only way I can say is, like, it feels like a sequel, you know? It feels like you're playing Uncharted Drake's Fortune, but just better in every way, shape, and form. And it starts off with, in my opinion, far and away, the best opening of the franchise, and one of the better openings in any game I've ever played, to be honest. In my opinion.
Yeah, the opening is fucking brilliant, because, like, it serves as a tutorial, but it's...
Yeah.
It's not subtle as a tutorial, but it's not so in your face that it's, like, annoying. It's a good
Yeah.
introduction to the climbing mechanics. And again... you're missing enough context where you want to move forward and you want to know what's actually happened here.
Exactly. It immediately, gets that intrigue going, and as well as that, and I know this is a little thing, but, the cover of Uncharted 2 is him hanging off a train. You open straight with that, so you're just thrown into, you get a game for the first time, the first thing you see is the cover, and you're just thrown straight into that, no context. You have no idea what's going on. It immediately makes you want to know what's happening, what's the context. And the non-linear storytelling of the first couple chapters of this game is absolutely spot on. I mean, the pacing as a whole is near perfect, but the first two chapters are truly, spot on, flawless.
Yeah, there really isn't much padding at all, which I'd say Uncharted 1 and definitely 3 suffer from. But, as you say, Uncharted 2 is paced really well. We flash forward a night in the Bahamas in his signature fucking double overshirts for some reason.
Always.
Meeting Flynn and Chloe's cool, because that's like the whole Among Thieves thing, where they're all basically like playing each other. I like their dynamic a lot, and it's a nice change from like Sully and Elena, who by this point you can trust.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that they introduce the new characters like that, instead of throwing us back in with Elena and Sully and then introducing these new characters as time goes on. They just throw us straight in with these new characters, because, if you've already got those original three, and then you try and introduce these other two, it might not, work as well. You might just kind of write them off straight away, whereas, bringing them in bringing them in from the offset really, makes you care about them. And Chloe is, of course, the best character in the series, so, because she's Australian.
Yeah,
and
Chloe's
a
a lot of fun. Flynn's like probably my favourite villain of the trilogy.
Really?
The original trilogy.
Okay.
Yes.
That's kind of fair.
Are you a Lazarevich man?
I'm a big Lasersvich fan. Not just because he's bald, but also because he's played by a Scottish dude. So, it's my obligation.
Oh, that's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
The story moves forward, though, and we're doing this job for Lazarevich, but we don't know it in the fucking turkey job.
Yeah.
I like this chapter a lot.
It's a solid one. It introduces, the new stealth mechanic, which is... It's not fantastic by any means, but it's something that was definitely lacking from Uncharted 1. There are so many times in Uncharted 1...
You could do it, but, like, it was really fucking hard.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
the museum heist is great, and it's... the first... It's the first time that you really get, like, a... I don't know, it really throws you out of your comfort zone, because obviously Uncharted 1 takes place on the same island, whereas this is the first time that you're really jumping between settings, and you get to see like a different environment, which is great. And the job as a whole is just a fun time. The banter between Flynn and Nate is perfect, same as it was between him and Sully at the start of Uncharted 1.
Yeah, I think it is cool that stealth is now a thing, though, because now you don't always need to engage in these like really boring gunfights, and there's at least another way to approach things, even if it's not like super in depth. What's funny though about this is because everything's more human, Nate now expresses that like he has a conscience, and when Harry says something about like, I wanted to bring guns, and Nate says, let's not kill them, they're museum guards. There's a point where Nate like pulls a fucking guy off a ledge, and he smacks his head off a boulder like 50 feet down.
Oh my days.
And it's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
No, that's ludonarrative dissonance. I don't care about the soldiers, but that kind of annoys me.
Yeah, no, Nathan Drake has no conscience, and I mean, at least they kind of tried, but at the same time, they'd already gotten to the point where it didn't make any sense to try. Like, just make him a fucking, soulless, remorseless, murdering machine.
The majority of murders, all of them, besides this one, are at least justified.
Yeah. I mean, most of them.
If you neglect the fact that they would be child soldiers in real life, you can justify them.
I guess. But yeah, no. So you get the. I was so convinced that they were gonna do the fucking Aladdin genie. I'm not gonna lie. When I heard that we were getting an oil lamp, when we were trying to find an oil lamp, I was like,
Will Smith pops out.
Yeah, I was like, there's gonna be a fucking genie, and I was Robin Williams' corpse. That was yikes. But yeah, no, and at this point, it was kind of obvious that Flynn was not exactly, the most trustworthy guy in the world. But at the same time, it had built up like kind of a relationship, and it does definitely have you questioning. As well as that, in the marketing, they made sure to only show Flynn as a good guy, only show clips of Flynn when he was on Nathan's side. So like, it's not
even in the multiplayer beta, he was on the hero side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not completely predictable, as opposed to some other twists in the series. It's not completely predictable.
Yeah. And
then the attempted escape from the museum through the sewers and that, again, just provides a different environment to be in, you end up getting caught regardless. But yeah, great little opening there. Great, fantastic opening.
Yeah, it is, and I appreciate that 2 does have like much more in environments, because part of the reason why 1 gets so boring is because it's just shootouts in what can often feel like the same location over and over again.
Yeah.
But in 2, you've got like this heist, you've got Borneo, the Tibetan mountains, and then you have fucking Shambhala. And you never spend too long in the same location to the extent where they become boring, and each of them feel unique and alive in their own way.
Yeah.
It does feel like a big, grand, globe-trotting adventure, and as you say, that's a part of the reason why it does feel like a natural progression, because each game gets bigger in scale.
That's the thing, though. I think there's a balance there, because one of the things that makes Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 1, in my opinion, one of the better things about them both, is that they feel like a real continuous journey. For most of the time, you don't take your eyes off Drake. You see off Nate. You see everything that he goes through. Uncharted 1, you literally see everything. But then Uncharted 2, after the segment in the museum, and after you're transported to the prison and you get cutscene with Chloe and all that, after that, you're with Nate the entire time. So it has that continuous element to it. You naturally progress from Nepal to Tibet to Shambhala, all that. Whereas Uncharted 3 does the time jumps and the location jumps, because obviously, one of the great things about Uncharted 2 is that it has all these different locations, like you said, these different set pieces. But Uncharted 3 kind of built the game around that, meaning that it was kind of just set piece after set piece moment. Like, it was a montage of moments more so than a continuous journey. So I feel like Uncharted 2 really strikes the perfect balance between that, and again, just gets the pacing, it's flawless because of that.
Yeah, that's bang on. And I think 4 is an evolution. You're gonna fucking love 4.
I think I am. I think I'm gonna.
So good.
I think 4 is gonna be my favorite, but we will see. We will indeed see.
But yeah, so stealth's introduced. The weird thing with stealth is, like, it's encouraged, but it's not always allowed. Like, when you're in fucking Borneo, right, in like chapter that's the next bit, and it's like you're encouraged to kill these guys quietly, but there's that outpost where there's like a guy watching over everyone, and you can get like 2 stealth kills, but then you have no choice but to go in guns blazing.
That is, it's kind of half-hearted stealth. There is definitely
as well as the monastery. There's some bits at the monastery that you can't do stealthily.
Yeah.
Because it's weird.
And even the places that you can, I mean, there's a YouTuber out there called Jacers. He's made a bunch of videos on Uncharted stealth, like just doing sections completely stealthily. And you have to be so precise with it. It takes so much trial and error to actually get things perfect stealthily, which is a bit of a shame because it would have been nice if you actually had multiple viable options there, but it's just you know it wasn't the focus clearly.
There's no leeway either, because if an enemy sees you and you start a fist fight and he doesn't call out to anyone, nobody shoots. Every enemy within the vicinity will just come looking for you, and that's sort of annoying.
And that's one of the things that it's mostly fixed in Uncharted 3, which is an actual praise I have for it. If you can get in a fist fight with someone before they call out for help, in Uncharted 3, it still counts as a stealth kill, even if you get into a fight. But no, speaking of the Borneo section and the stealth there, I actually adore the Borneo section. It's very similar. It's essentially just a massive. It's 2 chapters of callback to Uncharted 1. You're back in a forest with Sully going about killing random child soldiers, and obviously playing that back to back straight after you play Uncharted 1 might get a bit tedious, but I think it's a good way to kind of ease the player back into what Uncharted is. It really makes it feel like a sequel, and it's also the part of the game that gives Sully the most time to shine, and some of his best lines come in that section. So
and that's like Sully's not in Uncharted 2 as much as he is 3 or 1 or 4, but the only downside of that section is that it's too similar to Uncharted 1 in the sense that there's these drawn out gunfights.
Right.
Specifically at the end when you're at the base after Lazarevich is just fucked off.
That's fair.
There's just this massive fight where waves after waves of enemies come after you, and it's like,
that's fair. But
a bit annoying.
I don't know. I quite like that callback. You know, it's like I think it's a good way to kind of
I'd agree. But even gunfights are more fun. They don't all play the same because some interesting things with the environment are done. Like there's that one with Elena where you're basically glued to this sign. And there's now enemies with riot shields, there's snipers, there's the heavily armed fucking shotgun guys, the minigun guys, you've got more weapons, and the scenarios aren't as predictable. You won't walk into a place and see a fucking waist high wall and be alright, there's gonna be a gunfight now. They'll happen more naturally, and there's some exceptions. There's in fucking Tibet when you go into that cave with Tenzin, there's just a bunch of M40s scattered about the place. Well, what the fuck's going to happen?
Well,
but besides that, gunfights are better, which major downfall of Uncharted 1.
You're absolutely right, and the gunplay as well is very subtle, but it is notably more refined. Nathan Drake actually aims in the direction that the player aims, which is a nice little addition, and you just have that slight bit more control over the guns, as well as that the recoil from the AK-47 and things like that is toned down a little bit because it was a bit spicy in Uncharted 1. So
enemies aren't as spongy either, and fucking melee. In melee now you'll need to counter people, and it's just an added dimension that makes it a bit better,
exactly. It's really the improvements gameplay wise are very subtle, but make a big difference and make everything so much more dynamic and so much more fun. Personally though, my favorite gameplay sections far and away in Uncharted 2 are the puzzles and the big old nasty dirty tombs, and the climbing segments, things like that. The non-combat sections, because the design of some of these moments in Uncharted 2 is absolutely incredible. From the climbing section in is it Colombia or is it Nepal?
Nepal.
The city.
Yeah, with the fucking knife. Yeah, that one's sick.
You got the climbing section. You've got the three tombs, which the puzzles aren't exactly hard, but they provide some decent platforming. And then the best part of the entire game, of course, the ice tomb with Tenzin, which is just a massive platforming sequence with a little fight in between, but just a massive platforming sequence where Nate just has a chat to himself along with Tenzin. Those are my favorite parts because I just feel there was such a clear effort put into the design of them that is at points on par with another series that has tombs and also climbing in it. That came about at around the same time. So that's personally my favorite part of Uncharted 2, and that's what, yeah.
I like Nepal a lot.
Yeah?
I think it's really Yeah, I love
The
every
city?
location. Yeah.
Right.
The one with Chloe, because I find it to be really atmospheric. You've got all these, like, ruined homes that feel unique and lived in their own way. You've got, like, freedom fighters about, like, fighting Lazarevich's soldiers. You've got all these, like, signs with different advertisements on them. And I didn't notice too many cases of, like, assets being reused there.
No, it is.
You would think you would do in a section like that.
I mean, it's the entire game is so technologically, it's a fucking marvel for 2009, man. There are so many sections like that where it feels like every single thing you see on screen is completely unique and completely, it's happening in real time. Like when the city starts essentially crumbling beneath you, like it feels like there is an actual city crumbling. It's not a bunch of copy and pasted houses, going through preset animations like, Lisbon.
Okay, yeah. The fucking set pieces as well all feel better generally, like the big helicopter one in Tibet. They all have a bigger scale to them, I reckon.
Yeah, they added a lot of scale, and the set pieces as a whole, I think they were the most praised thing about Uncharted 2, and that's why they were carried over so heavily to Uncharted 3. And so many of them, like, again, they're just unique, and they have atmosphere behind them. They feel dynamic, they feel interesting, they never feel copy and pasted, they never feel samey, despite the game only taking place over 3 different locations. You get cities, you get jungles, you get mountains, you get fucking ice caves. Yeah, exactly. It's honestly brilliant. I think the most technologically impressive thing in Uncharted 2, which is saying a lot, is obviously the train segment, which is probably the most praised thing in the entire game. They used, I think it was that they used like mirrored assets, and they used different little techniques.
There's a big video on it.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff for Uncharted as well, to create the feeling that this train is going through like completely unique locations, and it just keeps going until you get to the front. But it never feels copy and pasted. You never see the same asset twice, and it's incredible. It's one continuous section over 3 chapters where you go from jungles through a massive tunnel whilst fighting off a helicopter to these massive ice mountains. It is insane what they did for 2009 standards. It is truly insane, and I get why it's most people's favorite part of the game.
Yeah, it is. It is fucking wild. It's at this point in the story though, right? And I don't like this, where Nate meets Elena in like the middle of Nepal.
Oh yeah,
in a fucking war zone.
You don't like
Elena and also Jeff.
Oh, not Jeff.
They're just there.
Jeff's best character. Jeff just makes fun of Nate and then dies. It's great.
Oh yeah, can we fucking talk about that? So in a gunfight, Jeff is shot, and then we have to like navigate him through the city.
Yeah.
And there's this part, there's that part where the big truck with the massive gun on it pulls up.
Yes.
And there's no way you can get through this section without being shot to bits.
I mean,
Jeff's
in reality,
just fine. Like even at the end of the cutscene, he's still being shot once, and then he fucking dies to Lazarevic anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Which is a great scene. You can't change my mind that is a great scene. I mean, the fact that Nate met Elena in the middle of a war zone, coincidentally, is, it's game logic taken to its extremes. But it is there for a purpose. It creates that tension between her and Chloe, who are essentially polar opposites character-wise. And I think it comes right at the perfect time. And it's around the middle point of the game that this happens. Drake finally comes face to face with Lazarevic, and in any other game, Lazarevic would be a terrible character. You'd assume, but I do feel that he fulfills his role perfectly. Like, sure, you've got the one-dimensional, army leader that's just fucking evil, essentially. He's just evil. That's his only character trait. But I feel like the performance, the writing, execute it perfectly to the point where he feels like an actual threat. You know what I mean? Which is why I quite like him.
He's actually imposing in some sense, which Roman, Marlow... See, because that's the thing, is someone like fucking Talbot from 3 feels imposing, but the way he's handled is so comical that his character's just silly.
Yeah.
But Lazarevich, like, straddles a line where he's imposing, but he's also fun. Like, he's one of few villains in the series that is actually just fun or even interesting. Mm-hmm. The only one in this trilogy, along with Flynn, I would say.
That's fair. I don't rate Flynn particularly highly. He has his moments. He has his moments, but aside from the start and the end, he essentially disappears. Like, he doesn't actually do anything.
No, he's just a massive cunt, and I like the personal relationship that he has with Nate. Everything with them feels personal, and there's a competitiveness like between them,
right? Which
is far better than what we got with someone like Roman, where it's just a force for you to fight. Yeah.
That's fair. That makes sense. It adds a personal touch to what could have been very, very one-dimensional. I see where you're coming from there.
But it's like you were saying about Elena being the opposite to Chloe. I feel that's even represented in the gameplay a bit. I don't know if I'm looking too far into this, but there's a bit more of like a push and pull with her, where there's that bit where like she lowers the walkway for you and shit like that. And in that bit where you're with Elena at the end of like chapter 6 or something, there is a lot more push and pull, where with Chloe in the gameplay bits, like when I think you're switching the power on or something in this like hotel, it's just you doing things for her. Like, she's a much more self-serving character, and that does come across playing the game.
Huh, I didn't even notice that. I mean, if that's the case, then that's a spot-on analysis right there.
I don't know if it's intentional, but yeah. Then there's definitely the train bit, which we've spoken about. It's cool.
Then you get to the train, and that's obviously fantastic. And then it comes full circle. You reach the opening again, hanging off the train, climbing back up it. And here is where that fantastic pacing that I spoke about earlier really comes into play. So you get this 3-chapter long train fight. It's just pure gunfire and action for the whole time. You fight your way through the snow, get the MacGuffin back, all that, and then Nate collapses on, which is exactly the feeling that the player has. Nate just collapses out of exhaustion. He's gone through so much over the past fucking, it's essentially an hour-long sequence. And it's like, it's emotionally draining for the player to do. Collapses in the snow, and he's, of course, found by the legend himself, the absolute king, Tenzin, who takes him to the Tibetan village. And here we get this...
And the village is cool.
Yeah, this slow-paced, atmospheric, chilled-out, safe, like, safe house that you can just chill out at for a few minutes.
And they build up the idea that it's like the one safe space in this game, which comes into play later.
Yeah, and it's it really eases you back, even back into the gunplay. It really slowly eases you back in. First and foremost, you go to the ice caves with Tenzin, and you just get this platforming section. It never jumps straight back into the action too quickly, which I feel Uncharted 3 does, and which is why Uncharted 3's pacing is a fucking disaster. Again, we'll get to that. But the Tibetan village is a great segment, really immersive and atmospheric. It connects you to the people of the village, so when you see them get attacked later on, you actually care. Connects you to the big boy yaks, and it's just it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the bit with Schaefer's kind of silly though, where he goes in and he's explaining the power of the Chintamani stone, and Elena literally points out Lazarevich doesn't need money; he has a fucking military at his back. And then Schaefer's like, "Hey, this stone, there's sort of some weird supernatural shit going on here," and Nate's like, "No fucking way." After fighting Nazi zombies in the last fucking game.
Yeah, that was very weird.
He needs it to be like proven to him that something like weird's going on here.
Yeah.
I don't know how he doesn't suspect that. But from there on out, he's basically saving the world. Yeah. And that's like basically what 2 and 3 are, because the scale needs to be up.
Yeah, but it really doesn't make any sense that he's suddenly this massive skeptic after everything he's gone through in the first game. Like, it just completely ignores the events of the first game, which that scene does throw me off a bit. I mean, Schaefer as a whole just is kind of dull, in my opinion. He doesn't really provide a purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I guess it's just exposition to like frame this what they're fighting for.
Yeah, like he gives all the info and then he gets captured just so that there is someone to save at the end, you know? And then he fucking dies anyway.
And then he dies, and then it's treated as if he was some like mentor to Nate when he's known him for a day and had one uneasy exchange with him. It's
he's literally just some random Nazi who's helping Nate out. It is a bit of a strange moment, bit of a strange character inclusion. But it's all made up for because Tenzin's the absolute king. Tenzin best character. Yeah. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, Tenzin's fucking brilliant.
But
then you got the village attack. I love this.
Oh, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah. Because as you're saying, they really build up this idea that this is like one safe space in this game, and it's just being fucking torn a bit. And then you've got like the tank set piece as well, and everything's crumbling around you, and there's like civilians fighting back. It's one of the gunfights where it's like this is like most of the gunfights in this game. Yeah. But the atmosphere and then the set piece at the end at least makes it much more interesting than it could have or should have been.
Yeah, and you actually feel connected to the village because of that. Like you said, because it feels like a safe space, because it's, because you're connected to people earlier. It is a quality section that that's how you pace a gunfight, you know? Like something that Uncharted 1 and 3 did so wrong so often was just throwing in a gunfight for the sake of it. Whereas this is an actually emotionally impactful thing. It's like after this massively slow section where you go to the temple, go with Tenzin, you feel safe, you feel happy, you're having a good time, and then suddenly the army just shows up and wrecks this village. So it's like, you know, like it actually builds up to a gunfight as opposed to just throwing random waves of enemies into you, which is one of the problems that the end of the game has when you get to the Tibetan monastery.
Yeah, but I think that's for the majority of Uncharted 2 at least, every gunfight there is will at least have some reason to exist, whether to add like emotion or tension or just any sort of challenge rather than just being paddy, which is what 1 and 3 suffer from a lot. But as you say, the monasteries like that, and we get to that after the fucking truck set piece, which is done in every successive game after 2.
Yeah, it became a little,
which is kind of weird.
Became a little tradition.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's kind of set piece though.
It just kind of happens, isn't it? Like it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's there, and I guess. I don't know. There's not much to really say about it, you know. It just kind of happens for the sake of happening.
I see. Especially after like the tank one, where that has some emotional impact.
The only thing it really does
again.
Yeah, the only thing it really does is solidify what we already know about Alina and Nate, which is that they are in love. That's about it. But then you get
to the monastery, though.
Yeah, then you get to the monastery, and it's the only place in the entire game where the pacing slightly runs into some issues. The game kind of falls into that trap of feeling like the ending climax has to be this massive, huge scale, over the top, constantly going on battle, you know? When it could have easily been, you know, like, sure, you could have thrown some gunfights in there, but there could have been some slow sections where you just admire the fucking size and beauty of the monastery without having to fight your way through it. There's some great moments, you know, you've got the tower collapsing after you kill the after you snipe the rocket launcher, but there's so much gunplay that it just kind of becomes numb after about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'd agree, and there's a good 30 minutes of that. Yeah, which is
it just doesn't really, it doesn't need to be as much as it is, that's all it is. Like, sure, I have a gunfight there or two, but it doesn't need to be the entire section. It doesn't need to be 30 minutes straight of gunfights, you know what I mean? But I mean, you get there, you get through the Tibetan monastery. very satisfying when you finally get through it because it is fucking exhausting.
But then you get captured by Lazarevich, and this is like, this is story-wise worst fucking part of the game for me.
Really?
So you get captured. Yes, you get captured by Lazarevich, and just because they need to remind you that he's the bad guy, he gives this big speech, and he's like, "I look up to these men, Genghis Khan, Hitler." Because if you don't know someone's a bad guy, just have them say they like Hitler.
Yeah.
And then you and Flynn fight the big Yeti guys, and he saves you with 3 shots from a fucking double-barrel shotgun, right?
Right.
And then he unmasks the Yeti guy, and they're like, "Oh, they're scarecrows," when they can eat fucking hundreds of bullets, right? So there's some superhuman quality there, and they're like, "Oh, they're not real," and we fucking unmask them. And then the next 5 minutes later, they go into Shambhala, this big open city. How the fuck has this not been found yet? And what they do is they go, "Actually, those Yeti monsters didn't exist. That would be silly. Here's some fucking Jotuns instead." What was the point of that? What the fuck is the point of that? It's so silly. This is just 10 minutes of stupidness. And I don't like it.
I think it's quite a good twist, actually. I like the twist.
No, but it's undercut the very next minute. There's no reason for it to be there. It serves no purpose.
What do you mean?
Because they're like, "Oh, these monsters, they were just humans," but actually they weren't because they've ate hundreds of bullets. And then they go, "Alright, well, actual monsters are in this game anyway." So it's like,
no, they
these monsters don't exist, but these do.
They don't say they're just humans, though.
He calls them, like, scarecrows, and it's never really explained what that
Guardians.
is.
They're Guardians.
No, I'm not talking about the Guardians, I mean the Yeti people.
Yeah, but the Yeti people are they're Guardians in disguise. And he says that.
But they're purple. They're like people.
Yeah, they are purple... they're purple humanoids. Yes.
Right, but what's the purpose of having this scarecrow thing?
Well, yeah,
just to have actual things exist anyway.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think the point was to make you think, oh, these are like demonly figures of this world, similar to the ones in Uncharted 1. So you expect some final fight with them, and then it's revealed, oh no, they're actually supernatural entities from Shambhala.
They would need to be supernatural like enemies to absorb hundreds of bullets.
Well, yeah, but it's
flip-flops.
But it's presented as just being Yetis, which are, commonly known mythological creatures.
It's just swapping out one monster for another, though.
Yeah, but
I think it's very silly, Joe, and you're not going to get me to move on.
No, I'm thinking about this now. Because okay, it is swapping one monster out for the other, but I think the point is that you don't. Fuck, you've kind of got me there. You have kind of got me there.
It is it's more because it just comes on lapped with a bunch of other shit that I don't like and I find comical. And they do this big Scooby-Doo moment as if it means anything, and then they just undercut it. I find it. But Shambhala, I think the Guardians are better than just regular guys.
Yeah, the Guardians are great.
Gunfights.
That's another way to, I said the naked slimy people from Uncharted 3. It switches up the gameplay. From Uncharted 1, sorry, switches up the gameplay. Same happens with the Shambhalan Guardians. Like, obviously it's still fighting, but there's a fear factor involved. Not Joe Rogan, but an actual fear factor involved.
Yeah, but then they just throw this army at you anyway, which is kind of annoying. I kind of wish they didn't do that.
That is a very weird...
That felt like padding to an extent.
That's a very weird moment. Because you're in Shambhala, and you're fighting through these Guardians, and you feel kind of terrified. Because you're in this lost land with no way out. The Guardians are just on your back, eh? But then, like you said, like you watch, Lasersvich, and I'm going to call him that from now on. That's all I'm calling him because I don't. Anyway, Lasersvich goes into Shambhala with what, 20 soldiers in the cutscene, max. Yeah. So it is really jarring when they just throw a fucking army at you. There's only one gunfight where it's a full-on army, but it's a bit ridiculous and it feels It just feels strange. Like it just doesn't fit. You know, they establish a tone with the Guardians. You know, there's an atmosphere about Shambhala, and it's kind of dragged down by that private military, which is a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, it is for sure, and it is padded to a small extent, but I enjoy the climax enough for it to be like acceptable.
That being said, it leads to a great boss fight. People can fucking argue with me in the comments down below about this. If you don't, this boss fight is fantastic, man. It's terrifying and hard. It's ridiculously fucking hard, but it is so good. So instead of diluting down his character, instead of just making it a fucking fist fight to the death, nah, they make Lasersvich the beast that he should be, the beast that he's presented as throughout the entire game. Make him essentially fucking invincible. He chases you just throughout this enclosed space for 5 minutes or so. And you've just got a running gun and pray for your life that he doesn't catch up with you, because if he does, it's 1 or 2 bullets and you're done, and you have to restart all over again. It is
I fucking
perfect.
I remember doing this on Crushing. It took me like an entire fucking evening to do back in 2018.
Yeah,
but it's a fucking sick boss fight.
I'd say it's the only good boss fight in the original trilogy, personally.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. But then, in the final cutscene, because he's the villain,
he develops conscious.
And he goes, "Me and you, we are the same man." And it's like, you're a fucking war criminal. Shut the fuck up.
Is
There's
Nate
not a
though?
comparison to be made.
Nate's not a war criminal. He's just a thief that also commits mass genocide in his spare time.
But the mass genocide is on the war criminals, and I find that more acceptable than destroying impoverished villages.
Yeah, no, it is. You and me not so different. It's like, bro, you just compared yourself to Hitler. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
it's fucking dumb.
It is a bit strange. He's like, you have no conscience. And so Nate fucking picks up his gun. He's like, maybe I shouldn't kill him. I've come all this way.
This is like the worst guy he's come across. Some of these people are probably just trying to fucking feed the kids. This guy has killed fucking thousands of people, and it's weird.
Yeah,
it's forced as fuck.
It's not good. It is weird, but also it leads to an epic line, an epic one-liner, which is maybe I won't, but they will. And then the big old Avatar Jotnar come in and beat the shit out of him. It's great. Oh, and also Alina gets fake killed as well. They do that a lot. They really like fake killing their characters.
Yeah, and I think they should kill some of their characters, but mainly in Uncharted 3, and I think we'll get to that. But 2, though, has a very lovely ending. Like, I think that's one of the... I think 4's is better, but I think that's the best ending in the series besides 4.
I think the fake out of the kill is actually good because, it cuts to the scene and it just does look like a funeral for Alina, and then it's just, it turns out she's fine, and it's just this back and forth little conversation between him and Alina. I think that's a great way to end it. It's not some massive, looking into the sunset type thing. It's just a quiet conversation on, in this Tibetan village, which is... Yeah, I think it works. You start the game on this grand scale train, and you end the game with this small scale conversation between two genuine people who have actual chemistry in this one. So yeah, Uncharted 2, 8.9 out of 10. Very good, very very good.
It is
the only great game in the original trilogy, in my opinion. And I guess it's now time to piss a lot of people off by saying that Uncharted 3. It's fucking dog shit. It's fucking dog shit, man. It's not good.
This game fucking sucks.
It's so bad.
It's not good, is it?
It is so bad. Nah, it's not that bad. It's rough, though. It's rough.
Okay, if we're going through the motions, it starts with a nice theme reprise. Let's give this praise where we can. Okay. The reprise of the theme, very nice.
Sure, I'll give you that. But then you have the fight in the British bar, which is the other way to, you start with action. It's not fucking action. It's the most boring fucking set piece of all time. You have this fight in a bar, and they try and introduce these new fight mechanics, which, by the way, are worse than Uncharted 2's fight mechanics. They're sluggish, and they trap you in animations. Anyway, so you get in this fight in a bar, and then you spend like the first 4 chapters just running through the streets of London for no fucking reason, right? They introduce, you know how in Uncharted 2 you have the opening sets up some mystery and intrigue, right? This just fucking throws you in, explains everything within 1 chapter, and then spends the next 4 or 5 chapters just explaining it more. It is the worst paced opening to any game ever. It's so shit. It doesn't feel like Uncharted at all. It feels like it feels like fucking Assassin's Creed Syndicate. You've got bald NPC. Every NPC is a bald Englishman.
That's accurate.
No. Every single NPC is a tall, bald Englishman, and it's so fucking bad.
You look around that bar, and like 9 of 10 of those men look like at least someone I know. So it's like, right?
Yeah, I mean, accurate. At least they carry the trend of making every villain an evil English person. This time it's just Margaret Thatcher.
This time it's fucking Sharon Osbourne. That's exactly who it is. It's like, the bar fight. I mean, the English pub bathroom is probably the most frightening atmospheric location in an Uncharted game. That's the last place you would want to fucking be.
Suppose
especially as a Yank. But
doesn't work out well.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you meet Kate Marlow,
who is Naughty Dog's attempt at a deep, multi-layered villain. And I say attempt because falls flat on its face. She's just a classist slag. That's all she is. That's all she is. That's just the fact of the matter is, she just doesn't do anything. And then you have Talbot, who's even fucking worse. Talbot is the biggest flip-flopping character.
Fucking stupid.
One minute he's like, "Oh, I'm the strongest entity on Earth. I can absorb bullets." And the next minute he runs away from an injured Nathan Drake. It pissed me off so much. And then, right, so then you're introduced to Marlow, and then you're reintroduced to her in this flashback scene. And this flashback scene is fucking terrible. It's fucking terrible.
And even after 2 introductions, you don't feel like you actually know her.
Very true. Very, very, very true. So the cut to, is it Colombia? It's Colombia, right? And it's young Nathan Drake. It's Tom Holland being a stoic action hero, right?
Oh, epic, wait. You described him on your stream as, what was it, the most perfect looking boy to ever live?
No, that's not what I said. Holy shit, young Nathan Drake is so fit. Like not in a creepy way. We're probably the same age. But like they made his character model the most beautiful person of all time.
Nathan Drake.
Like, I get that he's ruggedly handsome and all that, but Jesus Christ. No, Joe, question mark. No, we're the same fucking age, okay? Right? Okay? We're the same fucking age. We're not doing this. No. We're not doing this. He's like 14. Oh, fair enough. My bad then. But he's still fucking beautiful. I don't care. I just said he had pretty eyes, and that's fine. He did have pretty eyes. But Nathan Drake has pretty eyes. That's just the way it be. But yeah, okay. So we're given this flashback scene, and it's revealed that Nathan Drake was this fucking beggar thief on the streets of Colombia, who was taken in by Sully after they met in Colombia. Whatever. First of all, the city has less atmosphere than every single location in the entirety of Uncharted 2. Secondly, the mission is clearly built around this fucking set piece, so it's completely boring until you get up to that set piece. As is every
chapter in this game.
That is very true.
This is a problem we both fucking
That is
have.
very true. Also, it retcons the fact that Nathan Drake is related to Francis Drake, which is kind of shit. It's just a little bit shit.
They never explain it.
Yeah.
Marlow's just like, oh, that's not even your real name.
Yeah.
And they never fucking go into it until Uncharted 4.
That was such an interesting part of his character that was established subtly in the first game. And it's just fucking, just doesn't happen. It's just not the way it be. So that fucking sucks, right? And then cut back. Do you cut back to England? I don't even fucking remember. Do you cut back to England, or is this when you go to fucking France? Hold up.
No, this is when you cut back to England
Yeah.
and they're both sat there
Oh,
in this
yeah.
fucking alleyway. I like this bit though, when they're gonna find the secret base, because you see those like
No.
that yellow trim on like an electricity box, and you think, right, I'm gonna have to climb over this,
Yeah.
to fucking open this door,
Yeah.
and then Cutter's like, just use a little muscle, and he kicks the door down. That subverts expectations.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, that's a nice little. I mean, Cutter. Honestly, Cutter's not a bad character, but he is used in the worst way later on, and we'll get to that.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm gonna rant. I'm in the mood to rant now, bro. I'm so much better at talking about bad games than I am at good games. I'm realizing this.
Yeah. What do you think of the fact that Marlow and the Templars have a massive lair in the London Underground?
Yup, that's a thing. That's an actual thing that happens. It is. They literally are the Templars.
And it's the fucking Slytherin common room. They couldn't have made a more evil lair if they tried.
Yeah, and then it's revealed that Francis Drake, he went to Arabia to find the lost city of, what is it?
The Rubal Khali Desert.
Yes.
Oh no, that's not the fucking Iram of the Pillars.
On a secret mission from the Queen 500 years ago. And he never found it, so now Marlow's gonna find it, and
that was Drake's Deception. That was the title bit.
Of course, that's the no. But then but yeah, so Nate just kind of decides he's gonna go. Like, there's never it's just set up that it exists, and Nate's just like, let's go.
I fucking hate this.
Why not?
I hate how this is done. They're like, okay, before they go, everyone's like, maybe this is a bad idea, and then Nate's like, no, we have both pieces of this puzzle. They have fuck all. We're fine. We're ahead of the game. They've lost. We've won. And so they're like, they go off to France.
Yeah.
And fucking Talbot just shows up, and it's never explained. He just shows up with a private bald fucking military. And you're never told why. And they do the same thing in Syria. And the reason why you're never fucking told is because Cutter and Chloe didn't charge their phones, so you have an excuse to go to this fucking ancient Syrian castle, which for some reason is really boring. How do you make an ancient Syrian castle boring in Uncharted?
It is blatantly obvious that so much of this game was just centered around making different cool locations for set pieces. And sure, set pieces are good on occasion, but also if you don't have any purpose behind them,
there's no justification for the majority of them in this game.
There's no meaning, there's no purpose. It's just surface level. Epic set piece that you know you're gonna get out of. Epic fucking spiders, which by the way, the spiders suck, but that's a side note.
That's such a dumb gimmick.
So you go through France, and another thing that they decided to, for whatever reason, change in this game, right? For whatever reason, another thing they decided to, ruin the atmosphere by doing is essentially in every single location they cut all ambient music. There is no fucking ambient music in this game. There is 3 themes. There is epic action theme, epic emotional theme, and then the reprise of the Uncharted theme. That is it. Those are the 3 themes in the game. There's no ambient music. There's no atmosphere. The NPCs as well, the AI of the NPCs is completely brain dead in comparison to the other 2, which makes the game a complete breeze, right? I played the first 2 on easy, right? And it was a challenge. Now, I started the first game on normal, and it was tough, so I changed it to easy. I was like, I'll play Uncharted 3 on easy. Bro, it was the fucking easiest game of all time, right? I had to switch it to normal, and I was debating whether to switch it to hard, because it was just fucking... And I'm terrible at games. Let me be clear, I'm terrible at games, right? The NPC AI are so brain dead, they don't react to bullets. They will stand in the open, right, if they're being shot. They don't react to being shot in the fucking head.
And they're also more spongy now, which is really fucking annoying. I don't know why. Why that's a thing.
Nate has infinite fucking Nate has infinite health. So you escape this French castle and you go to fucking Syria. And in Syria, the atmosphere is even worse. It is silent throughout the entire time. There's none of the classic fucking banter from the first 2 games that makes the characters so lovable. There's nothing. It is just vapid. It is just, when's the big set piece? When's the big fight gonna happen? Because we know it's gonna happen, because that's the only reason the Syrian castle exists. It is so uninteresting. There is no detail to the design. It's just fucking dead for the first
Yeah.
12 to 15 chapters of this game. Maybe 16. It is just fucking dead. It is just so fucking empty. It feels so soulless. It feels so heartless. Honestly, I didn't hate it as much when I played it as I thought I did, right? But holy shit, it is so abysmally boring, dull, uninteresting, unatmospheric, fucking pointless. You don't empathize with Drake's motivations because he's doing this for no fucking reason, right? He's like, oh, we can't let them get to it.
But he's trying to prove something,
but
right?
That's never explained.
Like
it's
tension?
Just said. It's just fucking said. They just say the words, oh, why are you trying to prove something, Nate? And it's never explained what he's trying to prove or why he's trying to prove it or who he's trying to prove it to. This is the worst
part of Syria. Syria is shit because they keep doing this fucking artificial tension. They have that, and then they have Charlie being drugged for a bit. The drug just Talbot comes out of fucking nowhere, drugs him.
Yeah.
Doesn't have effect for a bit.
Oh.
So we can have this pointless fight with Nate, right? And then they act as if it never happens. Charlie jumps on some fucking high horse for some reason, and then at the end, Chloe does some big thing where she's like, "Oh, you're risking the life of your friends." They do a fucking retread of Uncharted 2, but it's nowhere near as good because Nate never learns. He carries on to endanger his friends. Elena has that line that would be really good under any other circumstances where she's like, "Oh, Sully would go to the ends of the earth for you, but don't make him." They do that endangering your friends thing, but there's no punishment or there's no lesson learned. It's just tension for the sake of fucking tension.
Exactly.
And that's all this part of the game is. It's empty, artificial, vacuous fucking tension. The story sucks for the majority of this game.
Yeah.
I don't know how I love this game so much. There was a time where I put this above 2. I did
that is mental.
For fucking years. I loved it before I replayed it.
Yeah.
Because I played it last in 2018.
Yeah.
You know.
Because this story is the first... more than 1 and 2. This story actually explores like some interesting topics, right? Some interesting moral dilemmas. But like you said, the problem is it just says them and then never actually follows up on them. It just says these things are happening. It just says that Nate keeps dragging Sully into these situations. It just says that Nate's trying to prove something without actually showing us. It never actually... And like you said, it doesn't have any consequences. You know, we get another fake spoiler. We get, obviously, it's a fucking, you know, anyway. We get another fake out death of Sully at the end of the game. We get, you know, no lesson is learned. By the end of the game, you know, for the entire game, everyone's like, oh, Nate, you should stop. You should give it up, right? You should stop going on these adventures trying to prove something. By the end of the game, Nate's just like, oh, let's just go do more. And everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. It all worked out. It shouldn't have all worked out. It's set up throughout the entire game.
They're just doing a fucking revolving door of adventure movie tropes.
Yeah.
But there's none of the consequence or weight that those tropes can and have had.
Spot on. Yes.
Yeah, it's fucking bad.
It's vapid and
I'm glad
empty.
we agree on this. Because I remember, I was watching you stream this game to start, and I was like, oh, this gets better. The last third is really good. Guess what? The last third is the worst part of any fucking game I've ever played.
Oh, really? I actually kind of like the last third, I'm not going to lie.
I do not, but we'll...
Chapters 1 to 15 are obnoxiously boring, right? Yeah. But to me, right, after you get on the plane, right, the plane section, great set piece.
Yes.
And then you have the desert section, which has... Again, it does that thing where it just jumps to a different location, and there's so much of that. But, you know, the desert section...
None of them are given really much time to breathe or fit. Yemen's okay, to be fair. But Yemen, again, is full of these stupid fucking plot points. There's Nate being, like, drugged and kidnapped, and that lasts longer than it needs to. And then
I forgot Yemen happened.
He regains consciousness at this, like, cafe, and Marlow just reads off his fucking backstory because they were like, oh shit, we forgot to do this in 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Let's have empty villain read off. She literally goes, oh, your mum killed herself. Yeah. That's sad. This is like a fucking Dickens novel. We're meant to inquire that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it.
Yeah, it is. I honestly, I completely forgot Yemen even happened, to be honest. Yemen
Do you remember
again.
the shipyard happened?
Yemen. Oh my
Yemen.
god. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
that's
I
the
forgot
thing.
about bro. Okay. First Yemen, right? Atmosphere again is worse than the past two games.
Mhm.
The shipyard. The shipyard is an example of terrible, 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 terrible game padding. The shipyard is one of the worst sections of any game I've ever played. And I may be over-exaggerating how bad this game is, but I'm trying not to be. I'm trying to be perfectly honest right here, right? The shipyard, you are taken hostage by this random soldier that before this you've not had any connection to.
I don't remember his name.
He says that he has Sully, which is blatantly a fucking lie and is obviously a lie, and there is no reason for Nate to believe him, right?
Yeah.
So you escape from this fucking prison section, and you spend 4 chapters, which makes up about 3 hours, give or take, 2 to 3 hours, give or take, where you just fight through this boring shipyard. It has no consequence on the story, no consequence on Nate's journey. It has nothing to do with the actual end goal. It provides no interesting gameplay experiences, and it is it doesn't, nothing happens, nothing comes of it. It is there purely to add 4 extra chapters to the game. It does absolutely nothing, and that's why I say that I feel like the game was built around the set pieces, because
you can see the line of thought.
Yeah, this has a set piece. It's a fucking epic. Oh, run away from a ship, but there isn't any reason for it to exist. It doesn't need to be in the game. It shouldn't be in the game, and it provides nothing to the game. It's just there because it was on the checklist of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and also the shipyard is like one of the gunfights in the game that is just fucking trial and error, unless you play it on like unless you play it on like fucking Explorer.
Yeah.
Because there's always just these random shotgun cunts that come out of nowhere. Yeah. There's these guys with the fucking RPGs that will one-shot you, where unless you've played it before and you know where they'll flank you from and which covers to use and not to use at certain points, you'll die. The shooting is bad enough as is. Having an hour of just pure shooting is bad enough as is. But when it's this frustrating, needlessly fucking frustrating, it brings the game down significantly.
Yeah, there's no...
it's bad.
Yeah, there is no skill involved. It is just trial and error. But yeah, going back to the desert, you go for a few days without any water or food, and then you show up to this big old town, this abandoned town, which for some reason has a private army in it and a fucking tank in it. And Nate somehow has the strength to fight through this entire army, even though he's not ate or drank in the last 2 days, and has also been in the sweltering hot Arabian sun. Yeah. Anyway, that's a nitpick, obviously. And then the king himself, Selim, saves you. Now, from this point on, I would say that I like the game. However, there is a massive problem here that massively distinguishes Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 2, and essentially embodies the problem I have with Uncharted 3, right? Uncharted 2, like I mentioned earlier, you've got, you reach Tibet, you get saved by Tenzin, pretty much the same way you get saved by Selim, right? After this massive action set piece, right? So you have this downtime, you get to chill out, you have a safe space, you get to interact with kids, interact with yaks, go explore this tomb. You get to chill out for a little bit. The pacing balances itself out, right? It goes from action to slow, high-paced, slow-paced, right? Yeah. Uncharted 3, you get saved by Selim, and then as soon as you get saved by Selim, you go and just shoot more dudes in the desert to go to the Ram of the Pillars. There is no sense of pacing. There is no sense of, fucking, like, at this point the player's exhausted, right? You've just went through the shipyard and the desert. You feel fucking exhausted, just like Nate would, and there is no downtime. It's abysmal. It is abysmal in comparison to Uncharted 2. It is absolutely abysmal.
And this is why, because I did the last third this morning, which I hyped up to myself as the good bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know a game is brilliant when the first 70% fucking sucks, but the last 30 is salvageable. It's not, by the way. It's just fucking more gunfights. Like, all of the ones in that town where you meet Salim, again, it's more trial and error shit, where they just fucking chuck enemies at you again and again. And you do the convoy again from 2. That's kind of cool. At this point, I was too frustrated to have fun.
Right, okay.
Like, I just wanted the game to be done. And then when you do get to a Ram of the Pillars, it is just more fucking gunfights.
Yeah.
But
And
do you want to talk about that now, a Ram of the Pillars, or is there only anything else?
I mean, that's the fucking worst example of how to do. A lot of people before I played Uncharted 3 said, oh, they really lean in heavily to the supernatural stuff. That was bullshit. That was a fucking lie. It is the worst possible way to do the supernatural stuff in Uncharted. In any game, really. Because all it does is say, oh, this city has this fucking demon powder, or whatever it is, right? It's demon water. Yeah. And then the army, the same army that you've been fighting for the last 12 hours, just show up with flames on their head. And again, it's trial and error.
This fucking sucks.
You have to get a fucking grenade launcher and just shoot them. Essentially, you have to shoot 2 waves of them, and then it's done. That is essentially the final fight of this game, because the actual boss fight with Talbot is a QuickTime event.
Yeah, we'll fucking get to that.
It's rough.
But this is my problem. Is like in Uncharted 1 or Uncharted 2, the Guardians and the Nazi zombies, some dynamic has changed there. You need to change the way that you fight and you move, and you're more aware. You're hyper aware of the fact that things have changed. But in this game, it's more terrible gunfights, but twice as bad. Fucking worse than that, even. Yeah. Enemies just take more hits. They're bigger sponges, and you just need to stick to cover even more. Yeah. It's fucking bad. And as you say, it is still trial and error. That's not fun.
Yeah, that's spot on, because it's just more of the same. It's not.
It's a terrible climax.
Like, there is no. Say you make an Uncharted game, right? And you want to include supernatural elements. Those supernatural elements need to change up the gameplay formula, need to change something, need to change the status quo for them to have a point. And that's what Uncharted 3 doesn't do. And honestly, that embodies the problem with Uncharted 3. It does superficial things to change the status quo of what the original games do, but there is no purpose behind it. There is no actual need to do anything that they do. You know, they added more set pieces, and whilst those set pieces are fun on the surface, they are there for the sake of being there. They are there because those were the things people liked from Uncharted 2. You know, they added combat, right? But they improved on the combat. But all the combat does is it's just more cinematic. It's simply just more cinematic, right? It doesn't actually add, like, feeling wise when you play it. It's the same as Uncharted 2. And again, you know, the supernatural elements, the same. The story, it's superficial, you know, surface level, moral dilemmas that are presented and told to you through exposition, without any real purpose behind them, without any real emotion, and without any consequences. Because by the end, even though we get another fake out Sully death, everything just goes back to normal, right? Everything goes back to normal. Everyone's fine, and they're ready to go on another adventure, even though throughout the entire game, everyone who's ever spoken to Nate has said, oh, you should stop this. And it's
fucking dumb.
I didn't realize I didn't like this game as much as I did until I started talking about it. Jesus Christ.
I think there is a case for Uncharted 3, and tell me if you disagree.
Yeah.
I think there is a case to be made for Uncharted 3 being worse than Uncharted 1.
I would agree. Uncharted 1's outdated, but it's not. I wouldn't say.
People are gonna fucking hate this.
I know.
You know that, don't you?
No, people are gonna be mad. People are gonna be big mad. Shout out to Brownie for it being his favorite Uncharted game, but it's just not.
Oh shit. No, Uncharted 3 is actually really good. I don't want to fucking die. Yeah, I like this game a lot.
Here's the thing. Uncharted 1 is outdated, but it doesn't do anything, in my opinion, abysmally bad, right? It has problems for sure, but Uncharted 3 actively fucking downgrades from its original game, whilst presenting those downgrades as upgrades, right?
Fucking exactly. You have Uncharted 2, which, as you say, in every way, is a perfect sequel.
Yeah.
Fucking outstanding game.
Yeah.
But then Uncharted 3 unlearns every lesson of Uncharted 2.
Exactly.
And it's so clearly on display, and it's worse when Uncharted 3 retreads so much of the same ground as 2, but does it significantly worse and with much less actual weight.
Yeah, it's everything a sequel shouldn't be, whereas Uncharted 2 is everything a sequel should be, you know what I mean?
Fucking exact. That's a great title for a video, if you wanted to fucking do that.
Well, I was thinking about it. But yeah, no. Yeah. So, oh man, I've got to say, right? Because obviously we stopped the Eagles Call, but I have kind of missed just chatting shit about games. It's been a while.
Yeah.
We've not had a chance to do
nice.
it since, well, you know what. So, but yeah, it is really weird though, because it's really strange. Uncharted is hyped up as this monumental series, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, well, okay, before 2016, let's say, before Uncharted 4 came out, it really only has one great game, right? You can argue that it only really has one good game. It is made by its characters, right? It is absolutely made by its characters, but it has so many issues. Uncharted 2, I think, is fantastic, but to say the series is better than, you know, fucking Last of Us, to say it's better than God of War, to say it's better than, you know, Spider-Man, PS4, to say it's better than... It's tough, because I hate to use this phrase because it used to be used by like fucking Downward Thrust and stuff, but it's a great and terrible franchise. At least the original trilogy is. It's a great and terrible original trilogy.
Oh, Joseph Anderson, he used that, yeah.
Oh,
You're right though, because that's why I'm so glad that Uncharted 4 exists, because I first played these games in 2018. I was fucking blown away by them.
Yeah.
But if I played this trilogy in 2015 with the mind that I have now, I would think that Uncharted 2 was just a fluke, and it so obviously wasn't. Like, could you imagine an Uncharted 3 made by the A-Team, who were on like The Last of Us at this point?
I think that's the biggest problem.
Really fucking good.
It does show, even though it was still written by Amy Hennig, it definitely shows that that Uncharted 3 was made by the B-Team. Because, in my opinion, it just feels like it doesn't really understand what made Uncharted 2 good. You know, it thinks that what made Uncharted 2 good was its set pieces and was the fact that it changed settings. Whereas really, what made Uncharted 2 great was that it improved on what Uncharted 1 did, right? It just made minor improvements whilst maintaining the core of what it was. You know, the great characters, the journey, that feeling of adventure. That it just kind of, I don't know. It's tough, but yeah, I'm very excited to play Uncharted 4. Despite it probably sounds like I hate the fucking franchise. I love Uncharted 2. Don't get me wrong, but I can't wait to play Uncharted 4. I think it's going to be my favorite because from everything I've seen and heard,
it's one of the best games ever made.
It looks like it's everything great about Uncharted 2 without everything bad about Uncharted 3. You know, so
Uncharted 4 again is a perfect sequel, but even if it was Uncharted 3 and it came after 2, I would still consider it a perfect sequel. It's fucking brilliant. We didn't do 4 in this video because like even if like we would have been able to, only a few years have passed, and it feels like so much of like its own beast than 1 to 3.
Yeah, and also
maybe in a few years.
Personally, like obviously it was 5 years ago, but it still feels new. You know what I mean? Like that kind of that generation, PS4, Xbox One generation, for the most part, still feels relatively new. You know? Yeah,
like Uncharted 4 could release today, and it would be just as acclaimed. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you know, if you know any of these other games released today, but no, damn, it is weird though. It is weird. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't slightly disappointed. But that's purely just because I thought that this series was kind of on the same tier as certain other series that I love, and I feel like it's not quite there. I think it is a great example of very good games, but I find it hard to say that it's a really great series so far. I think
it's
Uncharted
rough
4 will be
because
great,
there's so much inconsistency. You can sort of blame. I'm fine with you blaming me and Jamie Burns for the entire first half of Uncharted 3, going, "Oh, just wait, it gets really, really fucking good."
You really did. Yeah, no, it's fine. Epic set pieces at the end, you'll be okay. That's the thing. I enjoyed the end though. I did enjoy the end purely because it was epic.
Yeah.
But I only liked the epic set pieces. Everything else fell flat on its face for me.
I agree.
We went in. We went so in there. People are going to be so pissed off. This podcast went from the most chilled out, like, oh yeah, I really like this about Uncharted 2. I really want like this, to just us screaming like, fuck Uncharted 3. It's terrible. Burn it. But it's just the way it be sometimes, Chief. Yeah. I can't wait to play Uncharted 4 though. I think I think it's a good idea to take a break after the original trilogy. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but it's just, I'm gonna do it.
I think if you played Uncharted 4, like right now, you would fucking love that. Partly because 3 is so shit. Uncharted 4 is what 3 should have been, because 2 almost does feel like a jump a generation. It's that good, and then 4 feels like that again. Whereas 3 in every way is a step back.
Okay,
you know?
I get what you're saying. 3's the Arkham Origins.
Arkham Origins is redeemable though. 3 isn't.
Good point. I love how you've completely changed your stance. You went from Uncharted 3 is my favorite game, one of my favorite games in the series, to I fucking hate it, and I just love that.
When I played it in 2018, I was just classic 14-year-old contrarian. So I guess that's why I did fucking love it. But now, it is. It's saying it's shit though. It isn't really too popular anymore because it's done. It's sort of a 180.
It's done that classic. Guys, it's an underrated gem, guys. Uncharted 3 after the patches is actually really good. And it's really
the last great Uncharted game.
Yeah. But I think I probably dislike it even more than most people do, to be honest. And I think that's probably a result as well of playing them back to back. I prefer one as well. I would much rather sit down and play through the whole of 1 and just throw on a podcast and chill out than replay 3. And that's just
3's frustrating in every sense.
Yeah.
It is a frustrating game, thoroughly.
Jeez. Stop, it's already dead. But yeah, no, this has been a blast. It's been so long since we've done one of these. I can't wait to get back into the rhythm. Get back into the rhythm of these, because it's been the same amount of time, but it's just because we're not doing the other one as well. It's just I do quite enjoy doing podcasts, so can't wait for next PastCast. Stay tuned. What is it, Jack? Tell us what's coming next.
It's gonna be Reservoir Dogs, which is great because it's something we both fucking love.
Yeah,
and it's not gonna be as glum as this.
No more screaming and sad. It's gonna be a good time. Tarantino time. That sounded weird. That sounded like a sexual innuendo. Tarantino time. Do you reckon that's what he whispers into his conquest ears? I can't imagine Quentin Tarantino having sex. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk about that in the next podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you all so much for watching. It's been a blast. We're back. I keep saying that. It's been this... doing it bi-weekly.
It's the same amount of time as it usually is. But
I know,
anyway.
it just... I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's been a blast. Thank you all so much for watching. Much love.
Yeah. All right. Good night, lads.
Have a good one. Don't play Uncharted 3 ever.
No.
See you later.
Shit, go. Good night, boys.